Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to do something a little different. We are going to name a ghost that you've probably carried your entire life. We're stepping into the dark psychology of human connection to identify a profound, genuinely agonizing experience that you may have never really had the words for.
Here is a hard truth. The most devastating form of loneliness is not being alone. I want you to picture yourself in a crowded room right now. Maybe it's a really loud party, a busy family dinner, or even just sitting right across the table from your partner. You're completely surrounded by people. Yet in that exact moment, you feel entirely invisible. Actually, you feel more invisible than you ever would sitting by yourself in a totally empty room.
Which brings us to a pretty devastating question, doesn't it? Why do you feel most alone when you're surrounded by others? This specific experience, this deep loneliness in the very presence of company, is actually one of the most common psychological phenomena of modern life. Yet, it's this hidden pain. People just don't talk about it. Look, if you have felt this, I want you to know right now that you aren't crazy and you are definitely not the only one. There is a very specific cause for this that most people just simply never identify.
Researcher John Cassiopo actually spent decades studying this exact feeling, and he arrived at a remarkably precise definition. Loneliness is the perception of social isolation. It's the feeling that you are not truly known by anyone around you. Now notice what isn't in that definition. It has absolutely nothing to do with the number of people in the room. You can have 100 people around you and feel completely, utterly isolated if none of them actually see you. You know, the real you, not the version you're just performing for the room.
Because let's be honest, most social interaction is essentially a performance. You create the performed you, this version of yourself that's acceptable, manageable, and most importantly, safe. You perfectly match the energy of the room. You say the right things, you laugh at the right moments, but beneath that mask is the real you. And the entire time you're putting on this performance, the real you is just watching from somewhere behind your eyes. You're physically present in the room, sure, but you're entirely absent from the interaction. And the wild part is, the more skilled you become at performing connection, the more invisible the real you actually becomes.
But this performance, it comes with a massive, massive physical and emotional toll. It's the exhaustion of masking. Performing a connection when you don't actually feel it is literally one of the most draining things a human being can do. It requires constant, relentless monitoring. You're constantly checking your own expressions, your responses, carefully managing this huge gap between what you're feeling inside and what you're showing the world. It absolutely depletes you. And this is exactly why you can leave a gathering of people who genuinely care about you and still feel completely empty. The social interaction that was supposed to recharge you actually cost you way more than it gave.
So where does this heavy burden actually come from? Well, it usually traces back to a tragic sequence, often starting with emotional neglect or trauma in childhood. In that kind of environment, you learn super early on that being truly seen simply wasn't safe. Showing who you really were resulted in rejection, dismissal, or even punishment. So what did you do? You adapted. You became an absolute expert at hiding just to survive. You learned how to be there without actually being there. And eventually, you just forgot how to stop.
This leaves you with a deeply ingrained habit of hiding. Like we said, you might be totally present in the room, but you're completely absent in spirit. You're engaging with others, yet you remain totally isolated. Heck, you might even be the life of the party, completely pulling the strings of the room, and yet you feel profoundly, achingly alone. I really want you to hear this. Even in safe rooms today, surrounded by people who would gladly accept you, this survival habit runs so incredibly deep that you literally cannot stop hiding. Your nervous system is just desperately trying to protect you from a threat that is no longer even there.
Because right underneath this loneliness and company is a core terror, the fear of being known. And listen, this isn't some irrational fear. It is completely based on your real, lived experiences where your vulnerability was actively used against you. It's this profound, paralyzing fear of what would happen if people actually knew you. Not the perfectly crafted, performed version, the real one, with all the darkness, the doubt, and the intense complexity that you currently manage entirely on your own in the quiet of your own mind.
But there is a tragic, ultimate cost to wearing this protective armor day in and day out. The self you protect from rejection is also the self that never gets to be loved. I want you to take a second to really let that sink in. By perfectly shielding yourself from the possibility of pain, by making absolutely sure that no one can ever reject the real you, you are also actively blocking any possible chance of ever receiving genuine love and true connection.
Which brings us to what might honestly be the agonizing peak of this isolation: being alone inside a relationship. When the person you share your entire life with, the person sleeping right next to you, doesn't truly know you, the loneliness is qualitatively different from just ordinary solitude. It's the unique loneliness of being with someone and still not being found. You reach out for connection, but because you've hidden yourself away so completely, you consistently come back feeling utterly empty.
And that forces a deeply uncomfortable but absolutely necessary question. Is the problem them? Or is the problem the version of yourself you allowed them to meet? Genuine intimacy feels completely impossible because the true self remains totally buried beneath the mask. You cannot be found if you refuse to be seen. If you only let them meet the representative, well, the representative gets the love and you stay starved in the dark.
So, how do we actually navigate out of this dark space? Listen closely. The antidote to your loneliness is not more company. It's less performance. Filling your calendar up with more social events is never going to fix this. One single, genuine moment of true vulnerability in a safe relationship will do infinitely more for your loneliness than 100 evenings of absolutely perfect, flawless social performance.
Now, I want to acknowledge something right here. The risk of being known is very real. It's true. Some people won't be able to hold what you actually are. But look at the alternative. Spending your entire life in a room full of people who only know your performance isn't safety. It's just a very elaborate form of being alone. You're trading genuine connection for nothing more than a mirage of security.
Because here is the absolute truth, and I want to speak directly to you right now. You are not too much. You are not too complicated. And you are definitely not fundamentally unlovable. Those are simply the core lies that your past trauma and emotional neglect taught you to keep you safe from further rejection. But they are lies. They do not define your worth.
Which brings us to the ultimate, most hopeful realization of all. Hiding is optional. You are simply someone who learned to hide to survive, long before you ever knew that hiding was a choice. You built that incredibly heavy armor when you desperately needed it as a child. It kept you safe. But today you're an adult. You are in different rooms. And today, you can finally begin to put the armor down.
If this explainer finally named a feeling you've been carrying around your whole life, ask yourself, who could you become if you finally put the armor down? There is so much more to uncover. The source for today's insights comes from Dark Archive. I highly encourage you to subscribe to Dark Archive to explore more forbidden psychology, buried history, and the dark truths you were never taught in school. The archive is open. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this today, and please remember, you don't have to keep performing.